You can tell a lot about a person by how they treat Google Docs. Ryan Carter treated it like a throne room. The first week of senior year, when Professor Linton divided our computer science capstone teams, I already knew my odds weren't great. Team projects were chaos disguised as collaboration. But when I saw Ryan's name under mine on the shared sheet, I got that sinking feeling, like I'd just agreed to code with a salesman. Ryan was the kind of guy who could charm a vending machine into giving him 2 snacks for $1. Wavy hair, perpetual confidence, a smile that looked like it came with a subscription. Everyone liked him, especially Lila Kim, who practically melted whenever he opened his mouth. The fourth member, Evan Torres, barely spoke above a mumble. That made me the odd one out, the girl who actually wanted to build something. Our assignment was a semester-long campus navigator app. Simple premise, a mobile app that used GPS to help freshmen find classrooms. Hard part, integrating the data and building a stable back-end. The first meeting, Ryan spun his laptop around and said, "I'll be the project lead. I'm good at, big picture management." I blinked. "You mean coding management, or delegation?" he interrupted smoothly. "I'll handle submissions, version control, presentation, stuff like that." Translation, he wanted the credit without the work. I shot a glance at Evan, who shrugged, and Lila, who was already nodding eagerly. "Sounds efficient," she said, smiling at Ryan. I bit my tongue. Over the next week, we met in the library study room 3 times. Ryan talked big, Lila asked endless "how do I make this prettier" questions, and Evan quietly built half the skeleton. I focused on the routing algorithm, my comfort zone. Every time I pushed updates, I left notes, backups, and test data in a shared drive. Every time, Ryan reviewed them by renaming my files like prototype_v2_final_final, and never gave feedback. By the third meeting, I realized what he was doing, absorbing everyone's work so that when the final version came together, it would all sit neatly under his name. "You sure you want to be the one submitting the repository?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Ryan looked up, feigning innocence. "Why wouldn't I? I'm the lead." "Because it's a group project," I said evenly. "We can all share edit rights." He smiled. "Maya, I know you're the serious type, but trust me. I've done this before. Having one person control submissions prevents version chaos." Layla nodded like it was gospel. Evan just said, "Makes sense." That night, I made my own private backup folder, offline. Week by week, I coded and documented everything. The algorithm was clean, efficient, elegant. Ryan barely touched the logic, he just polished the interface and added a flashy splash screen with his initials hidden in the logo. Subtle. Narcissistic. Predictable. When Professor Linton checked in mid-project, Ryan did all the talking. "Our route planner's in testing now. I'm refining the back end." I waited for him to mention I'd written that back end. He didn't. Not even a glance in my direction. The professor nodded approvingly. "Good leadership, Ryan." I smiled tightly, nails digging into my palm. I told myself grades mattered more than credit, that results spoke louder than recognition. But something about the smug way Ryan leaned back in his chair made me want to rewrite the definition of teamwork right there on the whiteboard. Later, as I walked home, Evan caught up with me. "You okay?" he asked. "Define okay." He gave a small, awkward smile. "Yeah, he's a lot." "A lot doesn't even cover it," I muttered. "If he pulls this off, he's going to make it look like we just followed orders." Evan hesitated. "He's a good talker. But your code, it's good, Maya. He can't fake that." I appreciated the sentiment, but I'd seen enough good talkers win by rewriting history. "And Ryan?" He was already holding the pen. The following week, he casually suggested that we streamline communication by deleting older project files. "Too much clutter," he said, clicking through the shared drive. "We'll start fresh." I froze. "Don't delete anything yet. I'm still referencing the earlier versions." He paused, smiled again, and said, "Sure thing." But his cursor hovered on the folder a little too long. That's when I knew this project wasn't going to end with an A, it was going to end with a war. If our team meetings were therapy sessions, Ryan would have been the therapist and the patient. He loved hearing himself talk. By mid-semester, our group chat had turned into his personal stage. Every message started with, "So I've been thinking," and ended with something like, "I'll take care of that." The only thing he never took care of was actual work. "Hey team," his text flashed one afternoon, Professor wants an early progress video. Layla, make slides. Evan, tweak UI. Maya, maybe add some polish to that algorithm? Polish. As if the thing wasn't already doing 90% of the heavy lifting. I typed, sure. I'll handle it tonight. Then I watched the 3 dots appear. Ryan replied, cool. I'll review and upload when you're done. That was the pattern I built, he reviewed. And every review ended with the files last edited by Ryan Carter. During one late-night session, I caught him adjusting the metadata, swapping our commit history so his name appeared on top. I said nothing, but I started exporting PDF versions of every update, timestamped, stored offline. Just in case. A week later, Professor Linton praised him again. Ryan, I'm impressed by how cohesive your team's project looks, he said during our midterm check-in. Ryan smiled. Team effort, Professor. But I tried to set a strong foundation early on. He looked right at me as he said it. The urge to correct him burned behind my teeth. But I didn't. Not yet. Layla was hopelessly starstruck. Every time Ryan gave her feedback, she responded like it was divine guidance. You have such a good sense of presentation flow, she said one afternoon, tilting her head toward him. He smirked. It's all about intuition. You just have to feel the audience. Or actually test it, I muttered. He didn't even glance up. Maya, could you update the documentation? You're great at the boring stuff. Evan shot me a sympathetic look. I didn't need it. That night, I stayed up until 3 a.m. cleaning Ryan's sloppy front-end code just so our system wouldn't crash during the upcoming demo. My anger kept me awake more than the coffee. I told myself it didn't matter who got the credit, that our final grade would reflect the project, not the politics. But when Ryan posted the demo video, I nearly dropped my mug. He narrated the entire thing in first person. My app optimizes navigation routes using custom logic I developed. My logic. Lila's name showed up in the closing credits as presentation design. Evan was listed under database maintenance. Me? Assisted with debugging. I saw it right there, under my name, a quiet insult, typed in 12-point Arial. I opened our chat. Maya, you forgot to mention I built the routing system. Ryan, didn't forget. Just simplified roles for clarity. Maya, clarity for who? Ryan, for Linton. You know how he hates clutter. That smug digital smile at the end of his message made my jaw ache. When I told Evan, he sighed. You could bring it up to the professor. Without proof? He's got the repo under his account. Evan looked down. Right. I started noticing other things, subtle manipulations. Ryan telling Lila I was difficult to coordinate with. Rewriting my variable names before submissions. Even inserting tiny errors in my draft reports so he could fix them later. Death by 1,000 edits. One evening, when he bragged in class about how streamlined his codebase was, I asked, what's your runtime complexity for the pathfinding algorithm? He blinked. Oh, n log n, probably. Probably? I smiled sweetly. That's cute. The class laughed. Ryan didn't. That was the first time I saw his composure slip, a flicker of irritation beneath that salesman grin. After that, he started locking me out of sections to prevent overlap. I pretended not to notice and quietly kept saving backups of everything I touched. By November, our project looked polished on the surface, but the group was fraying underneath. Lila was tired of mediating. Evan was stressed about finals. And Ryan was doubling down, calling extra meetings, rewriting my commits, claiming we needed one unified voice. I started thinking of him not as a teammate, but as an infection. And like any good coder, I was preparing to debug him out of the system. At our last meeting before the final submission, he ended with a smirk. Once I upload this, we're done. Linton's gonna love it. Everyone, good work. Who's uploading? I asked carefully. Me, obviously, he said, spinning his laptop toward me. I'm the one with submission rights. Of course he was. I smiled back, but in my head, I made a quiet promise. If he tried to erase me, I'd make sure the only thing left with his name on it was failure. There's a particular kind of silence that only happens before a disaster, the stillness right before everything falls apart. That's what the computer lab felt like the night before submission. The fluorescent lights hummed, a low electrical buzz that made my eyes ache. everyone else had gone home hours ago. My code was running perfectly. After 3 months of debugging, patching, rewriting, and rewriting the same core functions, it finally worked. The routing was seamless. The database synced flawlessly. The app was done. I remember smiling when the simulation returned its first flawless route, engineering building to North Hall, 2 minutes, 47 seconds. It wasn't just a test result. It was proof that I belonged here. I uploaded my final files into the shared folder, sent a message to our group chat. Maya, final code uploaded. Please don't edit until I merge the logs. No response. Typical. An hour later, as I packed my bag, a ping sounded. Ryan, got it. I'll do a quick review and submit tonight. My stomach twisted. Submit tonight, as in without me. I typed, Maya, wait. I need to finalize the data tables first. Ryan, relax, it's all set. I'm just cleaning structure. Then, after a pause, Ryan, you've done enough. I'll handle it from here. That phrase, you've done enough, sat in my head like poison. When I got home, I couldn't shake it off. I powered up my laptop, opened the drive. The folder looked empty. Completely empty. At first I thought I'd clicked the wrong link. Then I saw the message, no files found. I refreshed. Still empty. The shared drive log said, deleted by Ryan Carter, 9:14 p.m. I stared at the screen, blinking fast, hands frozen over the keyboard. My breath went shallow. No. 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 I scrambled through backups, local caches, but he'd switched permissions. I couldn't even access older versions. My private offline copies were a few versions behind, not enough for submission. The final version, the one that worked, was gone. Gone like I never wrote it. The group chat pinged again. Ryan, just submitted. App looks great. Lila, amazing. You're the best, Ryan. Evan, cool. Good job, everyone. Maya, where's my code? Ryan, your code? What do you mean? Maya, the routing functions. You deleted the folder. Ryan, oh, that? There wasn't anything there. Looked empty when I checked. Maya, what? I uploaded everything at 8:47. Ryan, maybe you didn't save it right. Don't stress. I rewrote that part. Rewrote. My chest burned. He didn't just delete my work, he replaced it and claimed it. Layla messaged, Lila, wait, Maya, did you not finish your section? Ryan, it's fine. I covered for her. I told you guys I'd handle it. Lila, oh, okay. Thanks, Ryan. No one questioned him. Not one. I closed my laptop before I said something I'd regret. But it was too late. My phone buzzed, an email notification. From Professor Linton. Subject, concern about your contribution. Hi Maya, I've reviewed the team submission and noticed your section appears incomplete. Could we meet tomorrow to discuss your role in the project? I felt the floor drop out beneath me. The cursor blinked in the empty chat window as I stared at it, every muscle tight. Somewhere in the apartment above me, someone was laughing, the sound muffled and careless, but it made my throat burn. He'd planned this. From the moment he claimed control of the repo, he'd been setting me up. Every streamline, every simplify, every I'll handle it, they were breadcrumbs leading to this moment. When I showed up the next morning, Ryan was already in Professor Linton's office, charming as ever. I tried to help her, Professor, he was saying. She's great at ideas, but she didn't finish her implementation. He sounded concerned, like a friend reluctantly throwing me under the bus. Linton turned to me. Is that true, Maya? My throat tightened. No. He deleted my files. Ryan widened his eyes, innocent. I didn't delete anything. The folder was empty. I looked at Linton, desperate. You can check the version history, Ryan cut in smoothly. Actually, the version history's gone. She might have overwritten it by mistake. Linton frowned. Maya, this is serious. The humiliation burned like acid. Words stumbled out, explanations, technical terms, desperation, but I could see the professor's belief slipping away. Ryan had already won the narrative. When I left his office, my stomach churned with a kind of fury that didn't even feel human. It was cold, clean, focused. I wasn't crying. I wasn't panicking. I was planning. Because Ryan Carter had made one fatal assumption. He thought deleting my code meant erasing me. But he didn't know how ghosts worked. Especially digital ones. The next morning, the hall outside Professor Linton's office felt colder than usual. Maybe it was me. Or maybe it was the way people paused when I walked past, whispers following like static. I barely sat down in class when Lila leaned toward me. Hey, I'm sorry about yesterday, she said softly. Ryan didn't mean to throw you under the bus. He just panicked. I turned my head slowly. He deleted my work, Lila. She blinked, her eyes darting away. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. You know how version control can get messy. Messy. Right. Like a car crash. Ryan walked in seconds later, grinning as if nothing had happened. Morning, team. Big day. Professor said we might get extra credit for our app's design polish. He winked at Lila, clapped Evan on the shoulder, and didn't even look at me. I wanted to scream. Instead, I opened my laptop. The shared folder was still empty. No auto backups, no history, nothing but a blank, digital grave. During the team debrief, Professor Linton asked us to reflect on what we learned about collaboration. Ryan went first. Well, I learned that leadership means stepping up when things fall apart, he said, glancing in my direction. Even when some people can't handle the pressure. I laughed once, short and sharp. That's an interesting way to describe sabotage. His smile faltered for half a second. Excuse me? You heard me. Linton held up a hand. That's enough. This isn't the time for accusations. Of course it wasn't. There never was a time for accusations, not when your accuser had charisma on his side. After class, Linton pulled me aside. Maya. I understand this is frustrating. But without proof, I can't penalize another student. I had proof, I said. He deleted it. He sighed. These systems can be glitchy. If it happens again, make sure you back up your work locally. I wanted to laugh. If it happens again? It already did. When I walked out of that room, something inside me hardened. The kind of quiet resolve that doesn't come from anger, but from clarity. Ryan had rewritten my narrative, turned me from the backbone of the project into its weakest link. Fine. Let him write. I'd edit later. That night, I opened my laptop and stared at the blank drive. Then I remembered something, a feature buried deep in the cloud storage settings, autosave snapshots. Not visible in the normal folder, but archived in system logs. I scrolled through the timestamps, heart pounding. There it was. Campus Navigator _main.py, autosaved 8:47 p.m. My code. My name. My logic. I clicked download, hands trembling, and watched the progress bar crawl. When it finished, I opened the file, and there it was, perfectly intact. Every line, every comment, every little sarcastic note I'd left for myself in the code. Still think I didn't contribute? I whispered. The screen's glow lit my face as I scrolled through, feeling the anger crystallize into something sharper, focus. If Ryan wanted to erase me, I'd use his own arrogance to bring him down. Not quietly. Not in some private email chain. But where it would hurt most, in front of everyone. A few days later, we got our provisional grades. Ryan's team, My contribution, insufficient documentation. Lack of verifiable work. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. Then I smiled. He'd scored his victory too early. Because I'd realized something about people like Ryan, they never stop digging. Give them enough rope, and they'll build their own gallows, all you have to do is stand back and wait for gravity. The final presentation was 2 weeks away, a live demo in front of the entire department. Ryan would be presenting the app himself, of course. He'd already bragged about it in the group chat. Ryan, big day coming. Linton said admin might attend. Lila, that's amazing. Ryan, time to show off my baby. I read that last line 3 times. And somewhere deep inside, a single word whispered itself like a promise. Mine. Revenge, I learned, required patience and a little bit of code. For 2 nights I lived in the lab, windows dark, monitors reflecting my face like a pair of accusing eyes. I rebuilt the app from the autosave I pulled down, line by line, and then I did something I hadn't done during the frantic weeks of group work. I documented everything like a forensic scientist. Backups. Timestamps. Commit notes. Every function had a comment with my initials and the exact date I wrote it. Where Ryan had renamed variables to make them sound clever, I left the original names in comments, a breadcrumb trail only someone who cared enough to read the code would follow. I reconstructed the commit history into a clean PDF, embedded trace logs, and exported server responses that proved the algorithm's performance came from my heuristic. When I was done, I had proof. Not the kind a professor could sweep aside as a glitch. This was a dossier, a timeline that showed my fingerprints across the project the way dust shows on a thief's hands. But documentation alone wouldn't humiliate him publicly. Ryan thrived on spectacle. He wanted applause. He wanted to stand on stage and have the room nod in awe. If I wanted him to fall, I had to pull the rug in front of an audience. So I devised a trap, not flashy, but elegant. The app's deployment required a specific API key tied to our group's submission account. You could run everything locally, yes, but the live demo, the one they'd grade in front of the department, had to authenticate with that key. Ryan held that key. He'd boasted about it in the chat. I've got the submission creds, I'll handle the live deploy. He thought control of a token was the same as control of fate. I wrote a small module that verified the signature on the key before the route planner would initialize. If the key matched the current authorized user, everything ran fine. If not, a clear runtime trace would print the exact user and history of edits. The module was harmless to normal operations. It only revealed metadata that already existed in the system but that most people never bothered to read. In other words, it would not break the app unless someone tried to pass off work as their own. Then it would show the whole truth in plain sight. I tested it locally until the code was mercilessly precise. Then I planted a second element, a visible watermark in the UI that only appeared if the runtime detected a mismatch, a tiny line at the bottom of the map that read, in plain text, auth last modified by Maya Reed, original author. It was small. Quiet. A single, undeniable breadcrumb that would sour the applause. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't bribe Evan. I kept my mouth shut and watched Ryan puff his chest in the group chat, practicing his talk notes like a kid with a script. Meanwhile, I had to play the part of the wounded teammate. I answered group messages with bland courtesy. I suggested small UI tweaks in the days leading up to presentation, and I even volunteered to help Evan with database indexing so no one would suspect I was anything but cooperative. Lila thanked me in the chat for being a team player. Her gratitude felt like sand in my mouth. There was one variable I couldn't control, human guilt. Evan started leaving small, apologetic messages. I'm sorry about how it went down, he typed once. I tried to speak up, but Ryan kind of pushed everyone. He didn't know what to do. He wanted to mend things, but fear kept his fingers locked. I replied simply, we'll see. The answer was both promise and caution. I didn't want his half-hearted conscience to sabotage the plan. If he publicly supported me too early, the grand reveal would lose its sting. If he stayed silent, so be it. 2 days before the demo, I uploaded my dossier to an encrypted folder on a private drive and sent the link to Professor Linton with a formal subject line, documentation and timeline supporting my contributions to Campus Navigator, for your review. I didn't attach a line about Ryan. I didn't need to. The email was professional, a paper trail I could point to later. Linton replied with a short, thanks, Maya. I'll look it over. On presentation night, the lecture hall filled with the echo of footsteps and low conversations. Faculty, a few admins, and students packed the rows. Ryan arrived early, practiced his smile, and patted the laptop like it was a trophy. He didn't notice the way some people glanced at me, pity, curiosity, or perhaps the beginning of suspicion. I sat in the third row, calm, with the dossier file closed on my laptop. I watched his hands as he opened the project and began the demo script he'd rehearsed a dozen times. When the route planner initialized and the map loaded, a faint whisper traveled through the room, the watermark at the map's corner. Some heads leaned forward. Ryan's face flickered. He kept talking, voice steady, but his fingers trembled as he navigated menus. Then a console window popped up on the screen, not on purpose, showing system metadata. It was ugly, raw, and impossible to ignore, auth last modified by Maya Reed, original author. Commit history shows primary author, Maya Reed. Last edits by Ryan Carter, overwritten. Silence swallowed the room. Ryan's practiced lines dissolved like sugar in hot coffee. He fumbled for words. Lila's mouth opened and closed. Evan's jaw slackened. Professor Linton's expression turned from curiosity to something close to horror. I stood up. I felt 100 eyes settle on me like a physical weight. I walked to the front as the console scrolled again, this time printing the exact timestamps of my autosaves and the lines where my logic had been implemented. My voice was steady when I spoke. "This is the version I wrote," I said. "You deleted it. You submitted a rewrite and claimed credit. The evidence is right here." Ryan's color drained. He started to stammer an explanation about a corrupted folder, about an accidental deletion, but the console kept printing, and with every line, his defense narrowed into a single, vulnerable shape: a liar exposed. By the time the professor closed the laptop, the room had shifted. There were no claps. There were murmurs, and somewhere in the back someone asked if this would affect grades. It did. It would. The silence after Ryan's failed demo was worse than yelling. It wasn't the kind of silence that gives mercy, it was the kind that chews your name and spits it out. Professor Linton didn't say much at first. He just closed the laptop, looked at Ryan, then at me, and said, "I'll be reviewing this submission privately. Everyone can leave for now." Ryan nodded stiffly, trying to keep his cool, but the tremor in his hand betrayed him. Lila muttered something under her breath and slipped out, avoiding my eyes. Evan stayed in the back, frozen, like he didn't know which side of the room was safe. I gathered my bag and walked out without a word. But inside, I was already planning the next phase. The demo was just the spark, now I needed the explosion. By the next morning, rumors had spread faster than any official email could. People whispered in the corridors, in the cafeteria, in the Discord channels. Screenshots of the console log were circulating with captions like "Ryan got caught red-handed" and "she coded everything." I didn't leak them. Someone else did, probably Evan, maybe out of guilt. But I didn't care who. Every whisper was oxygen feeding the fire. At 8 a.m., I got the message I'd been waiting for. From Professor Linton. Subject: Meeting, Project Review. Time: 10 a.m. sharp. Attendees: Maya Reed, Ryan Carter, Evan Hart, Layla Mendoza. I smiled. It was time to make sure the truth wasn't just seen, it was documented. When I walked into the meeting room, Ryan was already there, eyes sunken, trying to look composed. Linton's assistant was setting up a recorder on the desk, official documentation. Perfect. "Let's get straight to it," Linton said, adjusting his glasses. "There's clear discrepancy between the submission and the authorship data Maya provided. I'd like to understand what happened." Ryan started his usual charm routine, all apologies and smooth talk. "There was confusion with version control," he said, "and I accidentally overwrote Maya's files. I meant to re-add her later, but I interrupted softly. You renamed functions. You stripped commit tags. You even edited my documentation headers." He blinked, caught off guard by how calmly I said it. Linton scrolled through the printed logs I'd provided, page after page. "Every timestamp matches her claim," he said. "Maya's original logic exists in autosaves predating your commits by nearly 3 weeks. Ryan, can you explain that?" He tried again, flustered. Maybe she restored them after I pushed my final." "I didn't need to restore anything," I said. "The autosave logs were uploaded automatically to the cloud at every compile. Including the ones you deleted from the local drive." That's when Evan spoke. His voice cracked slightly. "She's telling the truth," he said. "Ryan told us to act like she dropped out. Said she wasn't helping. I knew it was wrong, but he made it sound like the project would fail otherwise." Ryan turned to him, eyes burning. "Evan, shut up." Linton raised a hand. "Enough." The professor looked exhausted, but not at me. His disappointment aimed squarely at Ryan. "You understand this is academic misconduct?" Linton said. "You falsified authorship, tampered with data, and submitted stolen work." Ryan tried to protest. "It's not like I sold it. It was just..." "Don't," Linton said, voice flat. "You'll receive an email about your grade. This meeting is over." Ryan froze. Linton stood up and left, followed by the assistant. The room was suddenly too small. I could feel the pulse in my wrist. Ryan turned toward me, face pale. "You set me up," he hissed. I tilted my head. "No. You set yourself up. I just hit restore." He took a step closer, voice trembling. "You think you're a hero now?" "No," I said. "Just the author." Then I left him there, surrounded by empty chairs and the faint hum of the recorder still running. That afternoon, my inbox lit up. Subject: Academic Integrity Ruling, Campus Navigator Team. Ryan Carter, Grade F. Case escalated for disciplinary review. Maya Reed, grade A. Work validated as original. It should have been enough. But the savage part of me, the part that had been humiliated in front of a whole class, wasn't satisfied yet. He had taken my name from the project. Now, I'd take his reputation from the entire department. That night, I opened the project's GitHub repository. Ryan's name still appeared in the commit history because of his overwritten pushes. I forked the repo to my own account, reverted to the last legitimate version, and published it publicly under the title, Campus Navigator, Original Author Restoration by Maya Reed. The README included one sentence that hit like a bullet, recovered from overwritten commits and false attribution. Integrity always leaves a trace. By morning, it had hundreds of views from classmates and recruiters. And Ryan? His account was gone. Deleted overnight. I didn't feel joy. Not exactly. What I felt was clarity, that sharp satisfaction that comes when truth doesn't need applause to sting. A week later, the department hosted its annual Innovation Showcase, a fancy name for a small expo where top student projects were displayed for visiting alumni and tech recruiters. Normally, only the highest graded submissions got a booth. And this year, somehow, mine was on the list. When I saw the event email, I realized what had happened. Linton had personally nominated me. Not the team. Just me. I stared at the line. Presenter, Maya Reed, Campus Navigator, solo. It was poetic. The same project that nearly destroyed my grade would now stand under my name alone. And the best part? Ryan and his friends had to attend as part of the class requirement. The day of the showcase, the hall buzzed with lights, chatter, and the faint smell of coffee. Banners lined the walls. Students fussed over demos, code windows, glossy posters. Recruiters drifted between tables like curious sharks. I set up my booth quietly. Laptop open. The restored app glowed on screen, running smooth, clean, perfect. At the corner of the screen was the same watermark that had exposed him, faint, elegant, permanent. Authored by Maya Reed. When the event began, Ryan walked in with Lila, both pretending not to look in my direction. But the flicker in their eyes gave them away, curiosity mixed with disbelief. Professor Linton was walking with a small group of judges and alumni. When he reached my booth, he smiled slightly. Maya, he said, I'm glad you accepted the showcase invitation. Thank you, Professor, I said, steady but polite. I thought it was fitting, the project deserved to be seen in its original form. One of the alumni asked about the technology stack, and I explained the back-end logic, the predictive route mapping, the caching layer, all things I'd built. My voice was calm, confident. I'd rehearsed not for perfection, but for control. Linton nodded approvingly. Remarkable clarity, he said. That was when I noticed Ryan standing just behind the crowd, listening. He looked smaller than he used to. Not physically, just dimmed. A recruiter asked, "You did all this on your own?" I could have downplayed it. Could have shared the blame. But that's not how justice works. I did, I said. After some technical challenges with team integrity. The crowd caught the subtext instantly. Linton didn't say a word, but his silence was approval. When the recruiter left, Ryan finally stepped closer. Maya, he muttered, voice low. You really had to make it public. I turned to face him. You made it public when you called me lazy in front of everyone. He flinched. You ruined my record. No, I said. You did. I just kept the receipts. I started packing up my display as he stood there, seething but helpless. Students whispered nearby, phones discreetly raised, capturing the moment. I didn't care. Let them record. Let him live it again later. As I left the booth, one of the event organizers handed me an envelope. Congratulations, she said. You've been selected for the Best Innovation Award. Ryan froze. His face went blank, no rage, no expression, just hollow disbelief. They announced my name on stage a few minutes later. The same auditorium where he'd once claimed credit for my work was now echoing my name. When I stepped up to the mic, I didn't gloat. I didn't smile too hard. I just looked at the crowd and said, integrity builds stronger code and better people. Applause erupted. In the corner of the room, Ryan stood motionless. Linton clapped once, slowly, and gave a small nod that said everything, justice served. As I left the stage, Evan caught up to me. You really got him, he said. He's transferring out next semester. I shrugged. Good. Maybe he'll learn version control. He laughed nervously, unsure if I was joking. I wasn't. That night, I walked back to my apartment with the award tucked under my arm. The city lights shimmered on the glass like lines of code, tiny fragments of truth glowing through the dark. I didn't post about it online. I didn't need to. Ryan's name had already become a cautionary tale whispered in every group chat, "Don't pull a Carter." He flunked publicly. And I never had to raise my voice. 4 weeks after the showcase, campus life moved on, at least on the surface. But scars don't fade that easily, especially the public ones. Ryan Carter's name stopped appearing on student project boards. His internship offer at Atlas Technologies, which he'd bragged about endlessly, was quietly rescinded. Word was, the recruiter from Atlas had attended the showcase and asked about the plagiarism case. No one had to say much. The silence spoke for itself. He withdrew from the course 2 weeks later. Some said he was planning to transfer. Others whispered that he'd taken a leave for personal reasons. I didn't bother finding out which version was true. I'd already seen enough of his fiction. Evan started treating me differently after that. At first, he'd look away whenever we passed on campus. Then one day, he stopped me outside the coffee shop. "I wanted to say thank you," he said. "For what?" I asked. "For not dragging me down with him. You could have exposed all of us." I studied his face, a guilt, relief, fear, all tangled together. "I didn't need to," I said quietly. "The truth knows who deserves it." He nodded, like he understood. Maybe he did. After that, he started helping me on side projects, nothing official, but I noticed something. He'd begun adding meticulous documentation to everything he built. My kind of paranoia, now his habit. Good. Let him learn. Professor Linton, meanwhile, called me in a few days later. "Maya," he said, leaning back in his chair, "I've recommended you for the undergraduate research fellowship. Your work's been exemplary." I blinked, caught off guard. "Thank you, Professor." He smiled faintly. "You turned a betrayal into a blueprint for integrity. That's rare. Just be careful. People don't always forgive being proven wrong." I knew he was right. But forgiveness wasn't part of my design. Justice was. The fellowship email arrived the next day. It came with a stipend, a lab space, and a new project under my name, mine alone. I didn't reply right away. I just sat there, looking at my screen, remembering the night I'd cried in front of the same monitor, begging autosave files to still exist. They did. And they saved more than just code. They saved my voice. Later that evening, I walked into the empty computer lab. The campus lights flickered outside like quiet beacons. On the whiteboard, someone had scrawled a quote in dry marker, "Your work defines you." I erased it. Then, with a clean marker, I wrote, "Your lies expose you." MR. And for the first time, I didn't feel like the victim of a group project gone wrong. I felt like the author of the lesson everyone else was going to remember. They flunked publicly. I rose quietly. Justice didn't need fireworks, just proof. And that's how a single autosave file ended a liar's career. So, what do you think? Did Ryan get what he deserved? In my world, truth doesn't need revenge, it just needs receipts. If you liked this story of cold, calculated justice, hit that like button, share it with someone who's been betrayed, and subscribe to Savage Revenge where every lie meets its consequence.